Hello, Margaret. Welcome to the Awaken Heart podcast.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And we chatted just before we hit record. And this is a conversation I have not had yet on this podcast. And it's something that I think is going to help a lot of women that have children, girls, that are entering into those teen years, those pre-teens, the tweens, between the ages of 10 and 13, where they're just beginning to discover who they are. Their bodies are changing. There's a lot coming at them via social media. I mean, they're on social media probably since they were 8 years old. All these images of what a woman should be and what she isn't. And then we've also got what is going on in our world right now that is actually confusing a lot of this younger generation even more. And that is this gender fluid, a lot of men or a lot of boys coming into women's spaces and boys being able to have periods, yada, yada. It's a really confusing for a lot of girls. So added that their bodies are changing, all of a sudden you start budding like, what is this little bump on my chest? And maybe they're starting to get acne or pimples. But one of the things that changes for women when they become women, I keep calling these young girls women, which they will enter womanhood, is they start beginning to get their periods, their menstrual cycle. What is this? A lot of parents are really uncomfortable talking about it. They don't know how to approach it with their daughters. They hear it from their peers, their fellow girlfriends. They hear it from the boys that they hang around as well. And what is this? They start bleeding, this cycle. What is it? So that's a very big thing that happens with girls these age. A lot of times they hide it. They don't have anyone to talk to about it. So Margitt is here and she's helping these girls. She has rites of passage workshops. She has an upcoming book coming up, The Fearless Mother. And I would love, before we dive into this conversation, what inspired you to dedicate yourself to empowering girls and supporting mothers during the transformative tween years?
Very good question. I became a nurse very, very young. That was where I graduated from college. I always had fascinations with women. I would read lots of books as I was a nerd. And I loved what women were, who they were, what they did, especially in ancient times. And I got really inspired by the Red Tent that came out. And so I knew that there was something more as a young woman. I became a mother.
Can you explain the Red Tent? First of all, I know a lot of my audience knows about the Red Tent and how women were sent away to bleed together. The Red Tent.
Yeah, the Red Tent, the ancient natives of this country called it a moon lodge. And the women and their community that they lived in understood the cycles of women, and they understood that women cycled with the moon. It's just like cycles upon cycles upon cycles. So they would enter the Red Tent or the moon lodge in the dark moon, because if we didn't have any fake light or anything, we'd all be bleeding together. And a lot of us have had that experience when we went to college and the dormitories or at summer camp. Yep. And so they would be bleeding together. And it was also nature's way of protecting the community because they would be getting pregnant together and raising children together. So it's beautiful how nature just kind of worked out. But they would go, and this was also a very heightened time where their intuition, their dream time is very specific. The women would go into the moon lodge, they would rest, they would dream, they would sing, they would relax and rest, because when they come out into the community, women work 24. We could work 24 hours a day. It's just how we work. But we really need those 3 days of rest, of repair, of nurturing ourselves so that we can go out again to the community to work. So this is what the Red Tent did. There was different practices in the book, and this was very powerful. And I really teach the girls and the mothers that the men of these communities were actually waiting for the grandmothers and the mothers to come out of the tent or the moon lodge, because they always had wisdom of the community. Should we grow more corn? Should we move the tribe? Should we what is the next steps for our community, because they would be downloading this during their dream time because the intuition is so heightened. So this is what the red tent was talking about. And it was actually the Hopi Indians. It was the grandmothers in these tents that would come out and say, the yellow man, the yellow haired man is coming. So be prepared. So it has been destroyed. I think when we understand, like during our periods, we have PMS or we become bitchy or whatever that thing is, it's just more of it's like we're guarded. It's like, get out of my face. I need my time to sit and to be. And when we live in such a masculine world where that is a 24-hour cycle. So we're taking this feminine 28-day cycle and we're trying to fit it into a masculine cycle. And that's by the time we're in our 40s, we have complete burnout. You start to see disease, you start to see, disease of the womb, fibroids, cancers, heavy bleeding, PMS. Now there's another name for it. It lasts all month long. And it's like, because women are so exhausted, we have not taken that time out to rest. And men, if you look at their sun cycle, they wake up, they're very productive during the day, and then they're not productive at night. And they can continue the cycle their whole life because that's how they live. But for us, it's like putting a star into a box, like a square, and it's just not, it doesn't work. It's both beautiful. If you look at the hours of those, it kind of equals out in the end. But we are really suffering because we don't take that time out for each other, for ourselves and for each other, to support one another.
And then for a period of time, like the Indians and the red tent, it was honored. They knew what a blessing it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became a curse, just like so many other things. People call it, I've got the curse, through all those years, like the Dark Ages. And I believe it's religion caused that. I mean, I've been to Bali in Thailand where you are not allowed to enter a temple if you're on your menses. Like there's signs that are right in front of it. Like if you're on your period, do not enter the temple. Where really any blood that came out of a woman would have consecrated the ground, because
Mm-hmm.
literally life begins in our wombs.
Mm-hmm.
We are the portals to other dimensions. It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not raised like that. I don't remember being raised like that. You have I'm on my period. It's so awful. So yeah, so you teach girls to really embrace this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So, and you have a background as an RN, mother, and spiritual mentor. How do these roles shape your approach to the rites of passage workshop?
Oh, yeah. Back to that question. I kind of went off on a tangent. Okay, so I
Yeah.
became a nurse and became a mother, knew that stuff was off. And I had a daughter. I had a son first, and I really wanted a daughter. So I I dreamed her up and she was born. And then the minute I gave birth to her, I knew that this was a game changer. I actually said out loud, like, I've been waiting my whole life for you. And I think it's been lifetimes. And so I knew that it had to be different. I grew up in a very traditional Italian home. This was not going, whatever that was, it was going to be different. So as she was approaching puberty, I had made this vow to myself that I was going to do it differently, but I didn't. I was getting kind of nervous. And so I was having frozen shoulder. I was seeing a chiropractor, and she introduced me to a group of women. It's called Changing Women's Sisterhood. It's actually in Michigan. It's been around for over 25 years. And I went to the meeting. I was just like totally turned off. I was really not into all of this women's stuff. I was curious, but I was like, head over. I had so much going on in my life. I just didn't have time for that. But I wanted the teachings for my daughter. So there was a girls' rites of passage that was actually starting the next year. They called me and I was like, sign me up. I want this for my daughter. So this has been the work that I'm doing now comes from a very long line of women, this huge lineage. And it's been around the women that started it before me. It was 15 years. So this is going on like 20 years of just women teaching and just holding the space for these girls. So yeah, I went into that meeting, and my daughter, I had the the teachings with her, and literally shattered me, like completely shattered myself. And I was able to get to inside of my truth a little bit more. I've been working on this now for 2 decades. And to be able to hold my daughter, teach my daughter in ways that I never even knew. So I continued to assist in the classes. I was curious. I wanted to know more. I read all the books. I went out to Australia. I learned about blood rites and how to hold ceremonies for women. I continued to learn and grow. And then they were getting older and they said, "Hey, do you want to take over this work?" So that's how I ended up here. And now I hold women's circles. And I've been doing the workshops by myself for,
Mm.
yeah, since 2016.
And what was cool before we hit record is we learned that we're in the same town.
Yes. That is just so
Like,
crazy.
yeah,
That,
like
like,
literally
so,
within a couple miles. Yes. So we will be exchanging numbers after, and
yes.
I am definitely going to come to some of our women's circles, and we'll go out for tea or coffee
No, I
too and
look
talk about
forward
some
to
of these
that.
things.
Yes, I really look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So going back to the rites of passages and empowerment, why are rites of passages important for young girls, especially in today's world? And we'll go into some of the things that are happening in today's world. And how do they contribute to a girl's self-awareness and self-esteem?
So important. So glad I can answer this question. So it is innate in humans as we go from child to woman. Like once you go from child to woman, you will be the woman for the rest of your life. And you will begin to cycle through the different phases of womanhood. And our ancestors knew how important this transition was. And with that comes responsibility. It comes, your gifts start turning on, your intuition starts turning on. They knew how important this was because they wanted an active, responsible, whole being in the community. Now, because it's so innate in who we are, the children will create their own rites of passages to say, "Hey, look at me. I'm a woman. I'm an adult in this community. I can contribute." So what they're doing now is like we might have little ones. Some religions have it, like the Jewish have the bar mitzvah, and the Christianity has the confirmation. But we're doing like driver's license. They get their driver's license. They can now go out into the world, and really that was a part of. And so now they're drinking. I can be an adult. Look at me. I can have sex. Look at me. So they're recreating their own rites of passage. But when they do it, where they're being witnessed and honored by women in the community, even the men, include the men, when you're having ceremonies around this, it's like they feel that they're a part of something. They're being honored as an adult. They're being seen. They're being guided. They know that they're not going to do this all alone. It's not like you become 13 and then all of a sudden, you can have a house and a career. It's a baby step, but you're going to have this community to hold and support you. And so when it's not recognized by other adults, they will do it themselves to get recognized. So that's the most important thing. And to know that they're not going to be alone in this process. I mean, how many women, including myself, I felt so alone. Like I just wasn't taught. I wasn't accepted. It's like I had to like push my way into being accepted and seeing as a woman. And this
Hmm.
just and so they can still be 13 and know that that will come along. And because they're going to give and pull. Like one day they want to like hug their mom and they want to be a baby. And then the next one, they're like, they want to put the makeup on and be with their friends and try to try to act it out. And they're going to do this back and forth if they
Hmm.
have that security. And that's absolutely normal. So that's what I think the whole piece is just they need to be witnessed. They need to be
Hmm.
witnessed in the community.
And it's creating that community because girls start their first period.
Mhm.
Usually they'll tell their mom at some point, but she doesn't go into like the depth of embracing them like you offer in the community. And they have their own peers that they talk to. And then it's
Mhm.
coming from their own lens and whatever their parents taught it. So they're just hearing it from their peers or seeing whatever they do on social now because social is so prevalent everywhere.
Right.
And they can be led such the wrong way. So, such the long way. And so, I want to go into this question before I dive into the next one about what we're seeing happening with younger kids today, with women. How do you guide girls to embrace menstruation, understand lunar cycles, and see womanhood as something to celebrate rather than fear?
Well, we need to talk about it because, first of all, we give them a book or we might talk about it and they might see it from their moms. But I think if we continue to talk about it, and I love teaching, so just really understanding what is going on in their body, why they're cycling, how powerful it is to create, to be that creator. And so just really easing themselves into this new way, I think that they can really see the magic of their body, and how cool it is. And they're not alone. And understanding the cycles of women. There's four different phases of womanhood. And if they can understand that this is just the beginning phase, this is the maiden phase, and they can see all these different phases that they're going to be a part of it, it's just really empowering for them. And so instead of seeing it as a curse of like, oh, I got to put a tampon in so I don't miss the swim meet or whatever, and that is just something to do, if they can see it as something that they're a part of a bigger cycle upon cycles upon cycles, that they're just this one little cycle upon many, I think it can be very powerful. And to understand that they're cycling with other women, that's why I think community is so important, because they can hear at the very end of the workshop, moms will talk about their first moon experience and how what cycling is for them. And so if they can be and see other women cycling like that, it's like, oh, I'm a
Mhm,
part of something now, and it's just
mhm.
so empowering instead of what we've been taught. So I
Sounds
don't know
like
if I
such a great
if I answered
No,
that
you
question.
did. You did. And it's such an important way that how mothers can foster confident communication through this and openness with their daughters during this time of change to see that they're part of something that, is something bigger, not only their peers, but then also the adult women and the adult women that are past that time change as well. They've gone into the change. So, what are some of the biggest challenges mothers face when raising tween girls?
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking as I'm researching for my book, however the mother's first moon experience will really impact, if she hasn't done any work around that, will really impact what her daughter will feel. So if she was feeling embarrassed, if she was feeling lonely, if she was feeling, I can't believe this has happened to me, panic or whatever, if she hasn't done her work around accepting her period and being a woman, then that will go into her daughter. So that was, I wanted to share that. And there's been research around that. So it's really important that moms do their work. And the question was what again before, about how moms can support their daughters?
What were some of the biggest challenges that
Oh, the
mothers face
challenges.
when raising?
So the biggest challenges is that they want something different. They don't know how to do it. They don't have a community to help them do something different. And yeah, I think a lot of it is fear. Like, oh, I was a rebellious teenager. I wanted to be different. I don't want her to be like that. Or, "Oh, I couldn't talk to my mom about whatever. I don't want my daughter to feel like that, but I don't know how to do it." You know what I mean? So they're trying, they're wanting something different and they're trying really hard. Like these moms are a lot more conscious than they were 10 years ago. I got to tell you, like the amount of information that's out there, what people are sharing on social media, like they are on top of it. It blows my mind every year. It's just a little bit more and a little bit more. So, but yeah, the challenges is I think that they just need a community. They need support because they want in their heart, they know that they want something. They want to continue to have a relationship with their daughter. They want that closeness because there's something really magical, which I think we're just at the very tip of just discovering it. The mother daughter relationship is one of the strongest human relationships on this planet, and we understand it, we feel it when we're mothers and we have daughters and daughters with mothers, but we don't know how to nurture it. And because there's so much wounding, there's so much separation and so much drama and trauma with that relationship. But they innately know, but they just don't know how. I hope that makes sense.
So next question here. I'm just deciding where to take this next. So I wanted to address some of these things. We talked about it a little bit. So not only are girls going through all these changes in school, there's a lot happening within the school and what they're teaching in the schools, and let alone what they're allowing happen to women's spaces. I mean, it's hard enough to see all these changes in your body happening as a young girl. And then being told that boys can be girls too, and I, that boys can menstruate as well, and some are putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. I mean, this has got to be really another added challenge, let alone the old challenges that they've always had going into womanhood. And you had mentioned something really important where you were being open and holding space for somebody that came into one of your groups that was actually that was claiming to be a woman, and then I think he became a girl and then became a boy again. How do you, as a positive conducer for change for women in community and girls that are becoming women, how do you address what we're seeing happening out in society right now? And women, little girls, men are coming into women's bathrooms and going into their sports, and they're having to see intact males, undressed behind them. They're already really shy about their bodies as it is, and they're being allowed to go into girls' locker rooms and such. And then the girls are told that, oh, they need to maybe they need to go to counseling to be able to accept this person that's in the room that's identifying as a girl. So, what are your ideas on this? And you did something really powerful when you had that situation arise in one of your circles.
It was after the workshops. I went to extra classes to learn how to do ceremonies for like the menarche. So it's like a ceremony for women. So I had how to be, into womanhood. So this young girl from my workshop who I loved very much, she really wanted to have her own private ceremony. So she invited her family and I was so honored to do this and did this beautiful ceremony. And after the ceremony, I follow up with them to see how they're doing because a lot of things would come up. And so I coached them a few times after, and she's now identifying as a boy. And I was absolutely shocked and dumbfounded. And I learned a lot through this experience. And it was that I need to love no matter what their name is, who they are. And I just know these children just want so much love. And so she really taught me how to love in ways that I needed to learn. And
Mhm.
also, I learned to love myself more and to create those boundaries. That was my truth. And so, my truth was that it's taken centuries for us to have these conversations about our periods and to be in create safe spaces that we don't have to hide anymore to have women's circles and talk about periods and blood. And so my truth is that it is for girls only. And if you are transitioning or you're identifying as a girl, but you were once a boy, that is not fair. That is not safe in my space for the girls that are finally able to have these conversations about
Mhm.
periods. And so I believe that there will be a space and hopefully someone can create a space for these transitioning children because they do need the support and love. It is just not going to be in the circle for me because this is I, I'm not even educated in all of that. So
Mhm.
and how to support them. So but I knew how to support women and girls. And another thing that I saw is the confusion that is when they come into my class. It's the mothers are relieved. I had a conversation with a mom how her after these teachings in their school, the daughter at 11 years old was talking about being lesbian, being transgender, having
Just
all
being a
these, and
kid.
it was like it was changing, she said, every other day. Every other day. And the beauty was that the mom had has this beautiful relationship with her daughter that the daughter feels so open and safe to talk about all of these things. So the mom did a great job of just holding space and just letting her go. Don't judge it. Just leave her alone. Let her. Ex- and then she came to the class and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just a woman, mom." She goes, "I never wanted to kiss my friends. Like I didn't want like." She felt like if she had a girlfriend, like a girl that was a friend, that they had to be intimate. She was so
Mhm.
confused. And so this is it even solidified how important it is that I stay in my truth and this is for girls only.
Mhm.
That is they need to be safe too because the world is getting really loud with all of
Mhm.
this garbage. And maybe it's not garbage for other people. I shouldn't say that, but they just need their own space to their own people to support them. It's not in my circle.
Mhm. And it's like tomboys. Girls were tomboys. Didn't mean that they were boys. They usually grow out of it. They're just discovering who they are. And because they might not like their body or they don't like want to bleed, and maybe they haven't come into a community like yours, they don't want to be in this body. They're uncomfortable. Boys are looking at them, so they want to become boys. And now it's going so far as they want to chop off, give you hormone blockers and chop off body parts. And a lot of places like schools and some laws that came down, one in California, I don't know if they reversed it or not, where they could take your child away from you if you don't affirm their gender. So it's getting really scary. And that's why it's so important the work that you're doing to help mothers and to help these young tweens really understand, their bodies
Mhm.
and what they're going through. And they've got a whole community. And what a blessing it is to be a woman. It is
Mhm.
a pure blessing. Femininity is just a beautiful thing to have in
Mhm.
being a woman. So I wanted to jump in real quick to your upcoming book, The Fearless Mother.
Mhm.
How does that differ from other parenting guides out there, especially regarding to the mother-daughter relationship?
Well, I've done a lot of research on this book, and my book is different because I want to like bring in the woo woo a little bit and not to scare people. I'm going to do it in a different way, but bring in some of these ancient teachings from the goddesses, from the natives, Americans, from the natives that were, in Europe that I've studied, and to really bring it into a place that it's modern and that can actually be used today. A lot of books that are geared toward mothers and daughters have a either psychological, like psychology based to it, research based to it, or religion based to it, like a Christian base, which are all beautiful, but this is actually coming from a mom. So I really wanted it to be a book from a mom to a mom, but really bringing in some of these older traditions and making them modern. So there really hasn't been a book like that. There is a book that was written. It's the Rite of Passage. She has a program in Australia. And that book was written in 2017. And so I just want to like make it modern and have my own stories about how
Mhm.
this came to be and the relationship that I have with my daughter and experiences of what I went through. Because it is not for the faint at heart. This is a mother's daughter relationships are very tricky. And I think as a mom, you have to go beyond your known. You have to have the courage to take steps that probably no one in your lineage has done before to really create that relationship that I know exists out there. And it's a lot of heartache but there's so much beauty and so much potential that I never even dreamed about until now. So
Mhm.
I want mothers to have that. I really want them to have that love that they know it's in their gut. They know it's there and they want that for their daughters. So, yeah, I'm just going to
Mhm.
help them, guide them, give them little tips that they can integrate into their own relationship.
And you emphasize creating a powerful foundation of the maiden's journey, for the
Mhm.
maiden's journey.
Mhm.
What steps can mothers take to strengthen their bond with their daughters during this period?
So many things. Okay, so first is to really learn how to hold space. Women, no one in our culture really knows how to hold space. We know how to talk a lot, but we don't really know how to listen. the art of listening. So just listening to their children and just like being that container of love, and don't give advice, don't chime in. That is the first advice I would say to give to their children. Of course, we have to guide them and protect them and all that. But when they're talking about blah, 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 Julie said that, and that's the time where we just need to really let them go. Really begin to create dates and special times for their daughter. We're busy driving them to soccer, and then we got to go here, we got to go there. And it's just like, we think we're spending time with them, but we're really not. So really taking time out, even if it's just having a cup of tea at a tea shop, like outside the home,
Mhm.
like just are going for a walk, simple things to start really nurturing that relationship for each other. And it's very interesting. Some young girls in their 20s have created actual journals for moms and daughters so that they can take turns journaling and passing it to each other so they can start to have these intimate relationships. Girls want these relationships with their mothers. There's just so much stuff that needs to be cleaned out,
Mhm.
and the mother needs to do the work. That's pretty much it. So that would be another thing. And don't be afraid to talk to her about your intimate feelings about, I mean, you don't need to talk about like your sex life and all that, but just like about your periods or how you really felt as a young girl, or they want truth. They're like bullshit meters. They can see through the bullshit. So be yourself, be your truth. Don't be afraid to be yourself. That includes all of your feelings. You don't want to burden your child with your stuff, but just to know that you're a woman. And I believe that my daughter really started to see that in her 20s. And she's like, wow, I really thought you had it all together, mom. She goes, but you're just a woman, just like me, you
Mm.
know? And so just like really being truthful. And because I think as moms, we always want to like save them. We want to sugarcoat everything for them to make them feel good. But they really have to go through those darknesses, those dark feelings, because that's where they really learn about themselves. So that's another thing I would tell moms is like the hardest thing I think about being a mother is you got to see them fall. You got to let them go,
Mhm.
and you got to
Mhm.
let them fall. And I think that's been the hardest thing to see is when they're in so much pain, so much fear, and you know the answers. You've been around long enough, or you think you know the answers, but you have to let them go and you have to let them fall. And so
Mhm.
that would be probably the biggest advice for them is just, and I think that's where community comes in again, is get the support you need as a mom so that when they are going through those darknesses, um, the mom is getting the support too. And I always
Mhm.
bring the story of like Little Red Riding Hood to the group because Little Red Riding Hood is going through the dark forest. I mean, she's ready to go on her own. And it's like we've prepared her for 12 years. We've given her everything that she knows. She's carrying it in her little basket. She's with, the mom is with the daughter. She's got all of her lessons there, but she has to fall. She's going to trip. She's going to be almost eaten by a wolf, or maybe she will be eaten by a wolf and dust herself off and get back on the trail of life.
Mhm.
And that I think is the hardest, I think, for mothers.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that's a really good analogy. I never thought of it that way. Uh, yeah, it's really great. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I would love to find out where listeners can get involved in your work or access resources to support their own journeys with their daughters.
Yes, I have a website. It's margittroyce.com, Margitt Royce, Royce.com. And you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I would love to support you in any way, or if you need resources, because I feel it takes a tribe. We need to stick together as women and support one another.
Great. And what final piece of advice would you give to mothers who want to empower their daughters and strengthen their relationship with each other?
Empower and strengthen yourself first. That's where the fearless mother
Mm,
comes in.
mhm,
That
mm,
they're watching every step you're taking. They
mm,
are watching your behaviors. So it's like empower and love yourself. Clear out all the garbage that's not ours, that we were given by our own mothers. That mother's wound, clean it up so you don't pass it to your daughter.
mhm. That's great advice. And I have one more question before we go. I ask everybody this question: what does it mean for you to live with an awakened heart?
Ooh, what it means for me to live with an awakened heart is to surrender and follow the breadcrumbs. Yeah.
I like that so much. Well, Margaret, thank you so much for coming on here. I see how your work will create ripples of positivity in the lives of so many mothers and daughters. And the broader impact, what is going to happen is how this is going to affect society through your workshop and teaching. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
coming on
much.
today.
Yeah, this is so fun. I had a blast.
Oh, good.
I can't wait to see you in person.
Oh, good. I know. I can't wait. We're going to get off and exchange numbers before
Yeah.
you have to jump off onto your
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
call or workshop or whatever you have to do. So thank you so
Thank you
much for
so
coming
much.
on.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Bye.
Bye.